All right, welcome. People, I suppose, that are going to start joining more and more. Welcome, everyone, to our multi-city online exchange. This is a second one. This is part of the task 5.4 that we have in the project JUSTNature, which is the twinning city learning. And we have decided to do these two special sessions, and this is the second one of where we invited experts from other cities so we can learn from each other. So this event brings together city representatives, urban practitioners, and experts from the not only from the JUSTNature but from other projects to learn about first of all for make wider our network to share reflects upon learning and best practices and especially related to urban nature-based solutions. This event will revolve around the topics of entrepreneurial activation, which are innovation strategies and lesson learned in attracting private investments in nature-based initiatives. And the second topic will be what is next. We want to show you some inspirational cases of how to maintain the legacy and the results of the projects over time. This will be our agenda. We will try to be. I ask all the presenters to do it in the 10 minutes, and we will have, if possible, a little pause in 1 hour. And then especially would like to have a discussion. There are two parts of discussions. First, and after two presentation, and the last one at the end of all the presentations. So with you, I will leave the floor to Magdalena. Magdalena is a consultant in Prospex Institute, currently based in Germany. She works as with community engagement and urban development projects. She has an academic background in cultural anthropology and urban studies, and she's the founder of two organizations, nonprofits for art and community development in Zagreb and Leipzig. I'll leave the floor with you, Magdalena. You are muted.
Thank you, Tanya. A classic. I will take a few minutes to say something about our project, particularly for our guests. So, JUSTNature is an NBS project that aims to activate nature-based solutions in European cities in order to enable a just transition to low carbon, higher quality, and climate resilient urban living. The founding principle is the right to ecological space, which means that every citizen should have right to clean air, thermal comfort, biodiversity, and access to ecological amenities. So what is specific for JUSTNature is that it seeks to ensure that NBSs are not just for the privileged areas, but they are equally distributed.
I don't know what happened, sorry.
It is running. But a good reminder to keep it brief. So essentially, JUSTNature is addressing environmental injustice, social inequality, and uneven access to green spaces. You can go to the next slide. So the project is implemented in 7 city practice labs across Europe, which are pilots in very diverse European urban contexts. And the project has developed in 3 phases, which is the exploration, where we assess local needs and spatial injustice, as well as environmental stressors. Then the innovation practice, where we co-designed NBSs with local stakeholders. And finally, upscaling, which is the development of frameworks for long-term governance, maintenance, business models, and transferability to other cities. So the project places very strong emphasis on co-governance, participation, and justice, which means that we involve citizens, local NGOs, SMEs, city administrators, and particularly vulnerable social groups in co-design process, decisions, and the governance of the NBSs. So JUSTNature is also looking to innovate beyond the implementation of green areas. We developed business and social models, maintenance and operation plans, and technologies such as environmental sensing, as well as monitoring and evaluation tools to measure the impacts of NBS over time. You can go to the next slide, Tanya. So very briefly across our pilot cities, where each has a different climate, geography, urban form, and social context, we also implemented very different, very different NBSs. So here you can see on a map who our pilots are. So from the Mediterranean context of Hanya and Gzira to Munich, Merano, Leuven, and Zambate, we implemented based on different environmental, social, and spatial conditions. We implemented NBSs such as street greening in Leuven, urban roofs, green roofs in Merano, and here is the green wall in Hanya. We will not go much into the detail, but if you're interested, we can share more information later. Tanya, could you go to the next slide? So just some of our key achievements and expected impact, because as Tanya said, we are already approaching the end of our project. We are finalizing JUSTNature in February. So the project has developed a conceptual and action framework, which helps cities systematically assess where and how to implement NBSs, combining justice, ecological, social, and governance criteria. We have conducted several rounds of local stakeholder workshops in each of the pilots, where we enabled civil society to participate and to actively contribute to the co-design of the NBS, co-implementation, and finally, the decisions on maintenance. The concept designs for NBSs have been finalized and implemented largely across disciples. And yeah, we also expect broader impacts beyond the project, which is impact on air quality, improved health and well-being, climate adaptation and mitigation, biodiversity, stronger community ownership, social justice in access to ecological resources, and potentially business opportunities. Here we have, okay. So where does the twinning lay in the whole story? So twinning is one of the pillars of the engagement. We had engagement with the local communities. We had the engagement within the project consortium through 5 workshops. And finally, we have the engagement of partner cities external to the project. So each of the cities within the project had also one or multiple partner cities outside of the project, external to the project, with the purpose of building a network of NBS-oriented cities, and also to improve the replication potentials within and outside of the project. So through knowledge and experience sharing, through this format that we are organizing, we were kind of importing the knowledge from the outside to strengthen the development of the JUSTNature project, but also communicating the findings of JUSTNature to the others, with hopes that some of the innovation that we created here can be implemented further. So within this program, we already had 4 cycles of bilateral meetings and 2 multilateral exchanges with, so essentially bilateral meetings happened between our pilot cities and their partner cities, which is matching in a social geographical context, and multilateral exchanges such as this one, where we all come together to discuss different opportunities. Here I would also like to mention that if you would like to exchange contacts, or if you're happy to be contacted, you're welcome to share your contact in the chat with everyone. So in case any questions come up and you're happy to continue the discussion privately, you're welcome to do so. So now I already ran over 1 minute. I would start with the part 1, which is the entrepreneurial activation. So in this first hour today, we will be talking about private investments in NBS. And we will start with the presentation of Paul van Rosmalin. I hope I pronounced that well. So Paul works as a program manager at the municipality of Rotterdam in the Netherlands, where his work focuses on rooftops as additional space in the city to accommodate a wide variety of urban challenges. And today, Paul will be talking about another project, Life at Urban Roofs. So thank you for joining, Paul, and welcome.
Thank you. I'm going to give you a little bit of a roller coaster ride because I have a lot of slides with a lot of information. I'm going through it quite quickly, so bear with me. I'll start with you, and please, Tanya, just go through the slides already because there's a lot. Rotterdam, based in the northwest of Europe. This is Rotterdam pre-World War II. Rotterdam looked pretty much like most Dutch medieval cities. And if you go to the next slide, you already see that Rotterdam had a tremendous change. This was Rotterdam just after World War II. It was completely vanished after a bombing in 1940 and a fire that spread through the city afterwards. So the city had to rebuild. You could say resilience was already there because this is what the city looks like nowadays. It became a very densely built high-rise city that doesn't resemble anything of the pre-war city. But what I do see in this picture is that it is very densely built. There's hardly any water. You really have to look for the green, and it's very stony. And like any other city in Europe at this moment, we are facing a lot of challenges, urban challenges, mostly due to climate change, and we have to accommodate that. So all those challenges are looking for space. Please, the next slide. And yeah, this is an overview of 3 steps in the history of the city. Next one, please. Um, there is a lot going on. We need more houses. Up to 100,000 extra houses have to be built in Rotterdam. Next one. They come one by one, so you can just go on. We need to green the city. Nature-based solutions are needed. We need climate mitigation to prevent the fossil fuel consumption. Social cohesion is running low. We need people to meet each other, and we have to adjust for the climate that is changing when it comes to heavier downpours, for example, or longer periods of droughts. All those challenges look for space, and space is lacking in a city like Rotterdam and probably in the city that you're in. Next one, please. And then we have rooftops, and we never used them really in the Netherlands. I think in the south of Europe they were much more traditionally much more used rooftops, but we found out that rooftops provide a tremendous amount of space. In the city of Rotterdam alone, there's more than 18 million square meters of flat roofs that lay there without being used. And that's when we started. We have to start using rooftops. Next one. So rooftops, what can you do with a roof? We started with the now obvious green roofs, a place for nature, for greening, for biodiversity. They come, please continue clicking. They come very normally with what we call blue roofs, water retention, because you need water to make the green flourish. A little later in time came the solar roofs. They came up really quickly in the Netherlands. Clean energy production on rooftops with solar panels, maybe windmills in the future. Other forms are possible. We call them yellow roofs. Red roofs are there for social functions where people can meet, interact, recreate, find a place to rest. But that was where we started off, and then we expanded our function list or color list a bit. And they become a little bit futuristic. Maybe mobility could be a function on rooftops. Maybe we go from drone landing place to drone landing place on rooftops in the future. But nowadays we already see bridges bridging one roof to another to make people cross. For example, to accommodate a 50-minute city. Purple roofs are used for densification, mostly housing. A very beautiful Dutch verb that now becomes an English verb is topping up. So you could actually add extra floors on top of existing buildings if you use lightweight materials, mostly wood. And lastly, roofs are also a place where utilities are placed. It could be chimneys in old buildings, but many more installations are needed in modern buildings. And you also want to have some reserve capacity because you don't want to use all the space directly. And of course, they match together. Huh? The water is needed for the green, as already said. The solar works better when it's on top of a green space, etc., etc. They could work together, and this is where the interesting part comes in because we were never trained to do so. We were trained to do, we the water people will do water solutions, and we the green people, the green solutions, etc., etc. So the siloed approach is really one of our barriers. And what we said is like, okay, if you look at it individually in the next slide, it's not really going to work. And you can click again. Each shape is 1 square kilometer of space. Of our 18 million, we could use 2 or so to make 15,000 homes. Next one, you can go on 4 or 5 times. We have place for 2 times Central Park, New York on our roofs. Will cost us 45% of our roofs. 1 million households clean energy, same kind of thing, 40% of the roofs. We can do all those things, but we cannot do them all because the next slide will show you what, if you calculate what's already obvious, it's not going to fit. Some roofs will never be used because they're simply not strong enough, but all the other ones we have to combine. An integral approach to use roofs for different functions at the same time. So this is the story of rooftops in Rotterdam. And with the multi-roofs project, we actually went into that. We took this as a basis. And if you go to the next slide, Tanya, we'll see that this combining of functions is really quite interesting. You can go through again. I should have put them directly for time. But you can really combine stuff. A base quality could be improved by adding water, could be improved by renewable energies, or you could go to the utility side where people go to the roof. So different functions can really go together on the same spot. And this is not very new, but it's not what we do on a daily basis. So this thinking of multifunctional roofs started here. Then the Live at Urban Roofs project tapped into that, and it actually said for the next slide that hopefully it's working, that if you look at these functional benefits that we just been talking about, and everybody understands that. But if you then go to the next slide, we have to talk about the financial benefits, because nature-based solutions in general, but most things that we do on the rooftops, they do not profit. And we need to find ways that the money that you need to make this investment is somehow making value. So this is the discussion that we were talking about in the Live at Urban Roofs project. And what we came up with, the next slide, please, is a way to deal with return on investment. This is actually the biggest fraud in the 21st and 20th century. We have an economy that's based on return on investment, knowing that the planet cannot provide for. This plant will not keep growing. And still, we always think about this when we do investments in the future. We never do that in personal life. I've never thought of the return on investment of my clothes or a kitchen or a holiday. But when it comes to nature-based solutions, we tend to calculate it in this way. And our answer to this is we cannot change that system, but we can bring in new metrics, and that is a societal cost-benefit analysis. And that's what we made. The next slide, please. We have a value-based approach where all those values of rooftops, and mostly of the nature-based solutions on rooftops, they provide value. We know those values, and we learned to calculate them so we can capitalize them, put them in money. And if you can put them in money, so we do know what a square meter of green is worth, or a tree, or a cubic meter of water retention, etc. We put them in an Excel tooling, very simple. In 10 minutes, you can just calculate for your own place what would be the most optimal rooftop function mix when you look at value. And in the next slide, you see some examples. They're very brief. You can have the tool if you want, but this is the top one is a traditional business case, investments, return on investment, and you have a saldo. The second tier is including the social benefits. So what does the green add in value, and the water and the solar, etc. And then the third tier is actually explaining it in a different way. So how many rain barrels of water do we store? How many households of clean energy do we produce, or stuff like that? But also numbering, for example, the middle section is about BREEAM. You can get BREEAM credits if you do these kind of things. There's different ways to calculate it so that people can understand the value that it brings. And the interesting thing about this is that if you know the value of these solutions, you can start renegotiating it. You can start talking about who should do the investment and where should the money come from. Because when you talk about rooftops, the investment naturally comes from the rooftop owner, but they don't always benefit. Other parties can benefit much more. And in this way, we can talk about it. And that's already a big step forward. Now, we tested this in Rotterdam and in Veje in Denmark. The next slide. And these are several projects that were built using this tooling, identifying which would be the most interesting or most valuable rooftop combination mix for this place. And then we install them. And there's all kinds of stuff. There's big social housing. There's a monument. There is a social center in Denmark. Please come and visit them because they're much more beautiful in real life than on a picture. But this was also part of our project that we realized the projects that are mentioned here. To wrap it up, if you look at rooftops, they provide space. And if you look at the value that they bring, it should be a no-brainer. No more empty roofs. Empty rooftops are rather stupid. We can do so much more with that space, but you do need to have a good storyline, and you have to be able to explain it to financial people, because otherwise they will not always be as enthusiastic about these kind of pictures as at least I am. That's for me. My contacts are in the next slide, so if you want to reach out about Live at Urban Roofs or anything else that we do in Rotterdam regarding rooftops, feel free to email me.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Paul. I would say, since I'm aware you need to leave in a few minutes, do we have any immediate question for Paul? Okay. Yes, Ronan.
Yeah, hi everybody. Ronan Frizzell is my name. I'm working on the JUSTNature project, and we're very interested in private engagement with companies, with the general ecosystem, and it was very interesting to hear your talk, Paul, because it was all about, I guess, motivation. That's what kind of came to my mind. I'm wondering, just in terms of those first projects that you showed on the screen there, what were the motivators for those particular companies to be involved? Were they, let's say, socially responsible companies, let's say, who own the rooftops already, or did you have to go knock on doors to try and get them to be motivated, to be engaged, and to listen to what you had to say about the, let's say, the social value of the rooftops?
All of the above. So it's really tricky, and we found out that the type of ownership really matters. So when you're talking with a housing corporation, they do tend to understand these kind of values, but they lack the financial means. At least in the Netherlands, they do. But we also talked with private investors, and we found out, to my surprise, that the public relations value of a green roof was the reason that they would step in. They said, we want to be known as the green investor or the green builder. And that's why we put in some of our PR money to make this project run. So there's different reasons for different people. And I think that if you have this kind of tooling, you can really start talking, renegotiating, like, who do we address for what reason and what do we want from them. And for example, in the Netherlands, we have owners associations. They're the people that own their own buildings in an apartment block. They have to do the rooftop together, the maintenance. It's really hard to make them work together with one voice. It's a completely different approach than when we have to talk to, for example, municipal real estate, schools, etc. So, and my advice would be, try to find an approach that works for the type of ownership that you're dealing with. And if you want to have, we have some ideas on that. Maybe later on we can talk about it one-on-one if you like.
Sounds perfect. Thank you. Thanks very much. And thanks for the very interesting presentation. So,
Thank you for the question, Ronan. We also have a question from Alice from Munich.
Hi, good morning. I hope you can hear me because I'm mic-less today, or headphone-less. Thanks a lot. Super interesting. And I think the narrative is always what does the trick, no? My question would be, did you, as part of that project, develop also sort of planning standards then? Or do you think it would be possible to develop that? The background is sort of that in Munich, in the planning department where we're in at the moment, we kind of need to develop certain standards so that green roofs kind of become more the norm, and there's a certain quality criteria as well. And it's rather tricky between the planning department and the construction department to really sort of say, this is the way we should do it. And I was wondering whether sort of as part of that project that you presented, you'd also develop planning standards for green roofs.
So I think when it comes to technical standards, at least we lean a lot on the German FLLs and etc. So there's a lot of norms for the products themselves that are circulating in Europe that are, I think, becoming quite strong. When it comes to a city government, we're not there yet. We struggle with that. I think a lot of cities have done much better on that. Stuttgart, Basel, some others, they really made it obligatory. In the Netherlands, as a municipality, we don't have any power to enforce local building codes. It's a national building code, and we're not allowed to do anything about it. So we have to, like Ronan already said, it's about motivating. We try not to make it obligatory. We try to make it interesting. Subsidy schemes are also in the chat, is one of the things that we do, but also just spreading the word. And we're working now towards like what would be a standard in our building codes if we could add something, maybe on the national level. What would we do? And it's very tricky because so every building owner type has its own wishes, but also every location has its own wishes. You cannot simply do the same in a suburb as you would do in the city center, for example. So there's a big mix of and actually this is interesting, but I'll come back to that in a year, because we are running now a new European project which is called Multi-Roofs. Look it up. And Multi-Roofs actually says, like, if you want to look at this on an urban planning scale, how would you match all the things that you want to put in the same place with different types of owners, with different kinds of funding, with different types of neighborhoods? And that mix, we said it's too complicated to do by heart. We need data-driven scenarios for that. And that's what the Multi-Roofs project is all about, to make a digital tool so we can put the input of what we need, what we want, and what we can do in a certain place. Those are the three verbs that we use. And then software could hopefully help us to guide us along, okay, but this would then be the best solution for this specific case. And we do it in such a way that no matter where you are, you would be able to input your own data from your local authorities and the urban challenges of that place in an open source, open software, open data structure so that everybody in Europe can use it. That's what we promised to Interact, and that's what we're working on now. So this is something to follow. We're not there yet. We're building the strategy now, but it's the next step to make it so that every local authority can from that build its own building blocks to bring this into practice.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Paul. Let us now continue with the presentation of Jan Rasmussen. And Paul, just for the last words, I'm aware that you need to leave us. So thank you very much for joining, and thank you for your presentation and for the brief discussion. And I hope everybody managed to write the contact down if you're interested.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me, and feel free to share my presentation and contacts. I'll put in the chat two websites of the projects that I just talked about, and then I'll have to leave you. Floor is yours, Jan.
Thank you a lot. So now we will continue with another very, very interesting NBS project of Jan Rasmussen. So Jan has been working for the municipality of Copenhagen since 1990 and has been focusing on water quality, especially in the port of Copenhagen, with the focus of improving the water quality to make it possible to swim. During these years, he got a lot of experience in design, management, and practical handling of monitoring programs for water quality. Jan also has a very large network in Denmark with colleagues who are working in water planning, monitoring, and authority work. And for the last 18 years, Jan has been head of the project for the work with climate adaptation in Copenhagen. And today, Jan is here with us to talk about the Cloudburst program. So welcome, Jan.
Thank you. So just short about Copenhagen. We are about 640,000 inhabitants in Copenhagen, and as you can see on the map, we are placed quite close to the ocean. That means that we have some severe problems regarding climate change, about storm surge in the future. We also have an increasing amount of rainwater and a warmer climate in the future. But the issue about cloudburst is very severe for Copenhagen, as we have experienced several severe cloudbursts in the past 10 years. So next. So to do something about this big challenge, we in 2015 launched a program how to make Copenhagen climate proof regarding cloudburst. We developed a plan for the entire city consisting of right now about 240 surface solutions to handle rainwater, and some big tunnels, around 6 big tunnels, is also a part of the project, which we is now implementing together with our utility company. The reason why we choose the surface solution to handle rainwater was that it seems to be much cheaper than only using pipes, and also that the surface solution, they gave an opportunity to make the city more green, make more meeting places, giving more biodiversity for the city. So we have more outcomes of the huge investments of this project, which cost around 1.5 billion euros at the moment. In this product, we also have some private cooperation. We have a lot of co-creation with the citizens when we're building those the bigger surface solution, but we also have some co-financing with the private in the backyard. I come back to that. Next. This is an example of one of the private public investments. It's a backyard in Copenhagen. There's a lot of backyards in Copenhagen, and they actually are very usable for handling rainwater. So in this case, we have established a rainwater project with the citizen living in this around this backyard. We made a city provide funding for renewal of some of it, and the privates, they fund a big part of it together with the utility company. The utility company, they can pay for retrofitting of the backyards, because if you disconnect the rainwater from the combined sewer and handle it by yourself, they can pay you for some of the cost you have when you are retrofitting such a backyard. And in this case, you can see we have a water element, and we have running water around the courtyard. So it's very it's been a huge success in those kind of projects. We have implemented 5 of those, and 6 is under development at the moment. And yeah, they give the citizens around those backyards, they give them a more offer of a green and blue courtyard instead of having a gray backyard. The next. And also, when we implement those nature-based solutions at the surface, we have this involvement of the citizen from the very beginning when we develop the project. So what are their needs and wish for having a new green area? And this is one of the cloudburst project, which can contain around 3,000 cubic meters of water. It's much bigger than this picture shows. But the trick here is to involve the citizens from the very beginning to have this ownership of the project, so they use it and they take care of it. That means a lot for us, that it's not only a project for the municipality, but it is actually a project for the citizens around the area. And the next. And this is one of the very first project we provided when we started the implementation of the cloudburst project. It was a former totally gray area, no trees at all. It was only a big roundabout and wide roads. And in this case, we want to showcase what do we mean when we say we will make a green climate adaptation in Copenhagen. How can we transform the city so it becomes actually more green? And in this case, we have combined it with some ponds in the green areas, also to have more biodiversity, have more meeting places for the citizen, and also in the future to reduce the warming of the area, which is quite high here. We have a lot of black surfaces that gives a high temperature in the summertime. And the next. And this is a project from south of Copenhagen in a social issued area where we want to combine the water handling with a new offer for the citizen. We have there formed a stream with bricks in the middle of a green area and transformed it into a cloudburst solution where we can transport the water down a stream formed by bricks down to a pond you can see at the upper end of the picture. And this gives the citizen around here new opportunities to have flea market in the weekend, having concerts and that kind of activity, and it become also extremely attractive to stay there, to live there, because we have introduced this new product that give a really lift for social behavior in the area. And the next. And then just to sum up, the co-benefit of the nature-based solution we are looking for, of course, is we do this also because it's cheaper than installing big pipes in the underground, and it gives more recreational value, give more biodiversity, giving more meeting places, improve the microclimate. And we can do this in synergy with the urban renewal. And we can only do this because we have made this comprehensive plan from the start. We know exactly where to put those nature-based solutions, and we can only implement because now we know where to store the water. And if we have an area renewal, a park renewal project, we know exactly we have to be a part of this project. So it's also something, how do you cooperate inside the municipality about different items as road renewal, park renewal, and all that kind of stuff. So have this cross-sectoral cooperation inside the city is very important. And also this, of course, it gives an attractive city, and we also use some of the product we want to recycle the water, use the water for a purpose, and we're just about to prepare a new strategy where the reuse of rainwater be a new topic for the city. And the next. So, yeah. It's just about some of the barriers, enablers, and there's also for Rotterdam. I don't know if they fit, but what we have learned is that the European legislation, the Water Frame Directive, actually is a barrier because we're not allowed to divide water from those projects direct out to the harbor or to the lakes because of the water quality. And that's quite weird because if we don't make those projects, implement those projects, the water will run out anywhere by itself. But when we have we do it by purpose, we are not allowed to do this. So this is really a challenge. Also, national legislation about what are we allowed to pay for in those projects and what is the utility allowed to pay for, give some barriers. And of course, the coordination about the timing, prioritization of the local level, that could be a challenge when we have to implement those projects. And the enablers is, of course, climate change. We have suffered some of those huge downpours, which have made some disasters in the city. So this is really enablers. The local politicians, they are really they see a need for climate adaptation. So they are really enablers for implementing this plan. Also the citizen, because I think all citizens in Copenhagen had suffered those huge events. So they are really looking forward to that we can climate-proof the city. And utility company, of course, because they can save some money by implementing those nature-based solutions. And the need for new green areas also is an enabler, as a lack of green places in Copenhagen. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation and for this overview, Jan. To start the discussion, I would invite Ronan again. Just briefly, Ronan is working for Indacom Systems, which was responsible for the entrepreneurial activation in JUSTNature. So to start the discussion, I would invite Ronan to make a short comment on what we heard.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Magdalena, and thanks, Jan, as well, for the very interesting presentation again. Yeah, it's super interesting, and I know we touched on the idea about private company investment in the last conversation as well. But it seems you have a lot of citizen engagement here as part of the projects, which is really, really interesting. And I'm just wondering, as part of that, do you have some sort of methodology that you follow to have the citizens engaged? Are there obligations, for example, for residents groups to look after some of these installations once they're put in place? Are there costs associated with the blue or green infrastructure that citizens take on as part of the project, that, yeah, I guess would be maybe beyond what they would usually contribute to, let's say, upkeep of their areas? And do you use any sort of like digital solutions in order to kind of keep communications open with the citizens once these projects are implemented?
Yes. As all of those surface projects, we have a demand from political level that we have to include the citizens in development of the project. So actually, before we start those projects, of course, it depends on the size of the project. We have different size of engagements project processes. But those you have seen on the screen, we have a quite large involvement process. We start actually a long time before we start the building of the project. When we start the development of the project, we form a formal group from the neighborhood to be a part of the development of the project. So they are very engaged in this. We don't have in the backyard. They are a part of the maintain, of course, because they own the area, but also the utility company, they maintain it because it have a hydraulic function, and the utility company is also a co-owner of the project, so they also take care of some of the hydraulic, and they're been doing a formal agreement when we have finished the implementation of the project, who take care of what part of the project, of course. So, and all the green areas in the public areas, the city is responsible for the maintenance of the project, but they paid some of the maintenance is paid by the utility company because it's about water handling, rainwater handling, and it's their responsibility. So they pay a part of the maintenance, and the city pays for the remaining part about the greening maintenance, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, that's super interesting, because just to put it in context, within the JUSTNature project as well, you know, we have quite a diverse range of cities involved, and you know, different cities are different points in, let's say, the maturity of greening solutions, and let's say the strength of political will in different cities varies across the project. And it's very interesting to see how, I guess, how advanced you guys are, and how you've, you know, been able to engage the citizenship, because that was definitely a theme that came up as we looked across the different cities, and the cities engaged with private sector, with citizens in their own communities. One of the challenges really was, you know, how do you kickstart that? How do you get it going? How do you get the citizens motivated to be engaged? And it was certainly seen as a key part of it, because one of the key pieces of information that came back was really, well, without the citizenship being very much engaged, wanting these types of solutions, it's very hard to motivate the funding essentially to come from the political structures in order to help support that. So you clearly have you've been through that cycle. Obviously you have certain challenges in the past that you mentioned in terms of the flooding that has happened as the motivator that's there. But I think there's quite a lot of learnings even from the short presentation that you were able to give today for people to be able to see this is something where these are methods that you can have for citizens to be engaged, to really address some of the challenges there, particularly around funding and particularly around your reasoning for having, let's say the utility company actually pay for the maintenance because it has that hydraulic function. I think that's quite interesting and something that we can definitely take away from what you're teaching us here today. So thanks for that.
Yeah, and I think also the citizens, they really can see what is the outcome of those projects. They can see how they can benefit of this. So that makes it also, of course, more easy. And also because I think every citizen in Copenhagen, they have experienced how it is to be flooded. And that makes it, of course, more understandable why it's a need. We just come and say, there'll be some climate change, you have to pay for it. They say, I don't know. But they have suffered those big downpours and how they impact them. And then you see we have a solution where actually they can benefit from more green areas, more playgrounds, or whatever. And that's an enabler, really. So when we started implementing the plan, we have some citizen meeting where we present the program, and where there was no resistance against the way to do it. And also there was actually no questions about this will be quite costly, because we fund this by the water fee, the water tax from the utility company, and we had to raise the fee in the future because this is not cheap to do. It's have to of course, to raise the fee with maybe 20-30%. But there's no question about this. And well, let's do that, because you can make the city climate proof, and we have some outcome of it. So that's really been a positive experience to present this in these public meetings.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's the whole kind of question about the narrative that you're putting forward, and clearly that's been quite well received.
I think this learning and education about climate change and how it can impact the citizen and your property, that's important to have. We're not doing this for fun. We do it because we need it.
Absolutely. And I'm just wondering as well that you've implemented all these really great ideas throughout the city, and they've been very successful. Are you seeing, like, let's say, uptake of similar ideas by the private sector developers, and have they been successful? And
we have, when the developers, they have really looked into what we have done and adapted some of the ideas. And actually that's because utility company is the legislation in Denmark. They can make the product together with the city, or they can do it by cooperation with the private households, with the private landowners. And they have actually been doing some of the product, and they are in the beginning, the private developer was skeptical about this, but now they see the outcome of it, that it actually improve give their good outcome of the investment. Having more green areas will have this multifunction function that they can see the benefit of this. So actually it become an issue when you develop the area, how to climate proof the area and how to do that in a clever way, making the area more attractive.
Yeah, Yeah, it's always great to have the proof points, isn't it? There in front of them, they can't
Yeah, and
really
have
argue
some
with you.
examples of how you can do it. And I think that's what we needed also when we started the program back in 2010. There was very few examples of how to do this, so we had to develop them by ourselves. How to do this? There was no cookbook how to make a square, make it more green, and handle rainwater. There's a lot of difficulties and a lot of yeah. It really needs new standard how to do this, how to avoid infiltration of rainwater in basements, and how to avoid pollutants in the underground, in the groundwater, and all the kind of stuff. A new way to maintain it. So there's also internal resistance against this, because we had to learn our maintenance guide to have new machines, and that's what really it sounds strange, but it's really a challenge. Now they can't do it all with the old tools. They have to develop a new way to work, and in every level there's a new way to work and to cooperate inside the city. That's a challenge.
Absolutely. And congratulations on sticking with it and making that happen within the city as well. It's very impressive what you've achieved. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you for connecting it to our project, Ronan, and thank you for your answer, Jan. We have some more time for questions from disciples. So do we have any comments or questions from disciples? Well, if not at the moment.
Yeah. So you could be welcome in Copenhagen. I will gladly show you some of the examples we have built here in Copenhagen. So, and good luck with your project.
Thank you very much, Jan. Thank you also for the contact and for your answers. So if any questions arise, we will be in touch.
Yes.
And in case there are no questions in this moment, I would say we could go for a little break and come back at 11 for the second part. Do you agree? Yeah.
Okay, bye.
Okay. Thank you, Jan.
Yes, bye.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Hi, everyone. Let's start coming back, please. So we can have enough time for the next part. Okay. Are we all back? So we're going to start on the second part of this webinar, and it's nature-based solutions beyond horizon. So our next presentation is Green Ljubljana, Planning with Vision. And we have here Dr. Liliana Jankovic-Groves. I hope I pronounced it correctly. She's a urban planner and architect based in Slovenia. She works at the Urban Planning Institute of the Republic of Slovenia in Ljubljana. Her expertise includes urban development and planning projects, and she often contributes to international collaboration and knowledge exchanges related to sustainable urban solutions and nature-based strategies. With that, I'll leave you the floor, Liliana.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, thank you. So, hi to all. Coming from Ljubljana, you see where it is, where is the location. It is the capital and largest city of Slovenia, also transport, educational, science, and hub for the whole country, with a population of slightly over 300,000, while urban region has a population of 500,000, something more, and 26 municipalities. So we can also see the location of Ljubljana in the state itself. It's rather small state of Slovenia. Ljubljana influences almost half of the state's territory and lies on a very important corridors from Roman times on. So from Adriatic Sea, from the southwest to the northeast to Vienna in Budapest, and from Germany down to the Balkan region. Next. So I'm going to present not one, but four projects for Ljubljana, and first of them is being European Green Capital for 2016. It was a great success for the city, as then still now mayor came into power. It was like 8 years by then, and some really nice arrangements were already put in place by that time. And we gained this award, as you can see, and the city is still the only one in the region. So the only one in the south part of Central Europe, or we can say north edge of Southeast Europe, because all other green capitals we can see in the picture are on this diagonal from Portugal and Spain to the Scandinavia. Next. All right, so cities awarded by this title achieve high environmental standards, set high goals for further environmental improvements, and may serve as best practice examples. But on the picture on the right, we can see that the city really has its unique green identity. So it's a footprint of a city. Me, as an urban planner, always talk with such pictures and maps. So there are green hinterlands around the city, then coming to the center of a city in a shape of green wedges, and then intensive urban development along boulevards and avenues of the city. There are 6 or 7. Okay, next. I just put 2 examples. So renovation of a pond that was quite heavily polluted. It is a location of former clay mine. It was full of garbage and so on, and now it's really beautiful recreation area surrounded by residential areas. And completely new Šmartinski Park, quite vast. Before it was degraded area. It was area of a kind of informal settlements, cottages, and gardening and so on. And now it's just a beautiful park near to the Plečnik's Žale cemetery that is now UNESCO heritage site. Next. Okay, and second was in fact a book, Ljubljana Planning with Vision, Načrtujemo z vizijo, that you hear a little bit of Slovenian language. So it was like a wrap-up of 15 years of planning of Ljubljana in the right way, in the direction of a vision for 2025, and we then we wanted to just put our achievements into a kind of book, and we then realized it was always very important for Ljubljana to be quality planned, designed, connected, and quick, but also self-sufficient regarding food and energy self-sufficiency, green by upgrading natural givings with landscaping, green spaces, and of course resilient with adaptation to climate change. It was a time of COVID when we launched the book, and I'm sorry, but it's not available on websites. And I may say maybe that, Tanya, did you introduce me? I'm not now in a city, I'm now in a Urban Planning Institute of Republic of Slovenia, but I led the urban planning, part of urban planning department for 10 years. Okay, next. And I was in charge for many other changes of plan. So this is a strategic spatial plan for Ljubljana, adopted in 2010 and then amended in 2018. And we can see that really 3/4 of municipality are green areas, whether they are forests, so 46%, whether agricultural land, or of course building land that are parks, allotments, cemeteries, and so on, and also for landscape parks. So this is the Ljubljana's image of its greenity. Okay, next. So next project, Ljubljana entered EU initiative of Mission 100 Cities to gain climate neutrality and smart cities by 2030. And it's a path going on from 2022. Of course, we realized quite soon that it is going to be a travel toward the goal, and it could not be achieved by 2030, but already what the city already achieved were many successful measures. I only put some. That's why I put etc., because there are many measures now going on, like establishing car-free ecological zone in the city center that was gradually, spreading from the center, from the Prešernov Trg Square towards the edges of the city center, and walking distances were shortened with 8 new bridges, and Ljubljanica river embankments were really nicely rearranged, undergrounded garages replaced, parking lots, and so on. Many these kind of interventions. Just go on. And I will just show a few of them. So we can see embankments turning to, what was very important, to bicycle and pedestrian areas. So many streets were turned to pedestrian ones, and the city really changed its character. First in the city core, then spread out. Next. Ljubljanica River, once upon a time, 100 years ago, was dangerous for flooding the city, but not anymore. And now we embrace the river. The river is not big, it's not dangerous. We live on the river and we live by the river. With all these successful measures, in 24, Ljubljana was awarded the official EU mission label for its successful development and comprehensive climate city contract and progress toward its goals. And I also have to mention that being a green capital, Ljubljana then got a special award for being like the best green capital of them all by 2023. Next. And the last project of four I'm going to show briefly now, Urban Planning Institute, with cooperation, of course, with Ljubljana City. We enter spatial planning and design with soil project. It is Horizon project in 24 with a pilot of Ljubljana Northwest Green Wedge. I was talking of green wedges, and all of them are more successful than Northwest, because Northwest is in fact in its urban part, industrial, with really very few of green areas, and peri-urban part has its own problems with it has protected natural zones, but at the same time challenges to it. So the current condition on this part of green wedge is not okay. That's why we are approaching in a project what we can do with regarding with soil quality and also with which measures could be implemented on a site. Okay, next. So urban part, you can see it's just industrial area. It is, of course, also a heat island, one of the most heat up areas in the city, and peri-urban, informal urban gardens, while it is water conservation area with drinking water for 2/3 of Ljubljana. So very, very important, and also agricultural land important itself. Next. Okay, so
I will, yeah.
okay,
We will present the barriers and the enablers at the end, if is that okay?
all right, all right.
Thank you. So I will ask you, thank you, Liliana, and I will ask to please keep your questions to the end so we can have a whole discussion area. So because Liliana is going to be with us until the end, and of course, Kasia has Hadisa also. So our next presentations is finance and urban nature plans. We have Kasia Ruth from ICLEI and Hadisa Lemo from NUA. Kasia is a senior expert in communications and at ICLEI, specializing in biodiversity and nature-based solutions. She's involved in sustainability initiatives that support local and regional governments worldwide in ICLEI. And Hadisa is an experienced professional working in Horizon NUA. She will tell us what it is about. As a project officer with a background in international development and Horizon Europe projects, she supports cities at their transitions toward nature-positive futures by building capacity within local governments and communities, exploring alternatives, financing options for urban nature and urban nature-based solutions, and creating awareness around green jobs, opportunities, and entrepreneurships. With that, I'll give you the floor, Kasia.
Thank you. Yes. So as she said, I'm Kasia Rudd and I work for ICLEI, and I'm going to introduce you very briefly to the Urban Nature Plans Plus project and the concept of urban nature plans before handing over to Hadiza. So urban nature plans are integrated planning frameworks that emphasize the important role that nature plays in meeting a city's development goals. So it is a tool for helping cities increase coordination across sectors and address a wide range of challenges. You can click the slide. So where did the urban nature plan concept come from? Well, it was first outlined in the biodiversity strategy for 2030. You can click again, where it was called an urban greening plan, and there was a call for cities over 20,000 inhabitants to create these. 2021 is a bit in the past, but we are still working towards supporting cities in creating urban nature plans, as they're now called. You can click again. And the support framework, the guidance of the toolkit, came out of a process with Eurocities and ICLEI, where we talked to a large number of cities about what they wanted an urban nature plan to look like and what they thought the process ought to be. You can click again. So UNPs, they can be considered a framework. So it's a structure for bringing different sectors and different plans together to protect nature in the city. This doesn't have to be nature-based solutions, but nature-based solutions generally play a very big role in this. It is a 10-step process that guides cities through connecting their different plans and departments, and it can also be a product, so a final plan that you make. In Urban Nature Plans Plus, we're working with 5 cities. Some of them already have plans that meet the requirements of an urban nature plan, and some are still working to get there. So I'm happy to answer questions later about the framework versus process versus product, because I know that can be a little bit confusing. But really, the idea is that it meets cities where they are to help them get where they want to go. Next slide. So it is a 10-step process, and there are 3 sections in it. And the thought is that cities can then jump in at the part that makes the most sense for them. So click again, please. Here you can see that we're working with Barcelona, Paris, Belgrade, Burgos, and Mannheim. And Barcelona and Paris already have urban nature plans that they're now testing and supporting the other cities in developing urban nature plans. So with that, I would hand over to Horizon NUA. I know that was really, really quick, but they're going to give you a bit more insight into the role of finance in this project and how they're supporting our cities.
Thank you so much, Cassia and Tanya, for that introduction. Tanya, can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. Before I begin, I would just like to introduce Horizon NOAA and outline our role within the UNP Plus project. So Horizon NOAA is a not-for-profit foundation, and we support cities, regions, innovators, and entrepreneurs in advancing nature-based solutions and in transition towards a just, carbon-neutral, and nature-positive economy. We also manage the Connecting Nature Enterprise platform, which is an online platform that creates awareness of the role and scope of nature-based enterprises to support the delivery of NBS. And these are the projects we are currently involved in, including UNP Plus, where we work with the cities around step 7 of the UNP on financing, entrepreneurship, and job creation. Next slide, please. Yeah, so the first step of our work with cities was we conducted a research, which is deliverable 2.1, and the findings were validated with our cities through a series of discussions, which in turn informed our subsequent work with them, and where we explored a wide range of barriers to financing and entrepreneurship in our deliverable. But today we'll only be focusing on 3 key challenges that our cities have repeatedly raised. Again, like Cassia mentioned, we try to work with cities and meet them at where they are and then try and provide support that would best address its needs along in developing their urban nature plans. One of the major barriers cities have talked about is they often struggle with the complex application processes which is required to secure funding for nature-based solutions, particularly when financial expertise is limited. Again, the team that actually, implement working around the urban nature plans don't have the technical expertise around financing. It's usually another department within the municipality, and they often find it quite difficult to work with them, in releasing money for urban nature plans. And they also lack the knowledge, which also brings about long-term maintenance costs are being underestimated or omitted, which they've talked about repeatedly, where they implement actions, but then they didn't actually think about the maintenance and the ongoing cost, and then it now comes aligned during the life cycle of this project. And then it also threatens the sustainability of this project as well. And then urban MBS depend heavily on public budgets. Yet a lot of our cities have been complaining they're experiencing budget cuts, and then this actually creates a lot of constraints in actually implementing these activities and developing their urban nature plans. And then they also have competing priorities as well, and then inconsistent political supports with the changing political cycles every year and different agenda. It actually impedes their work as well. And then the limited autonomy to allocate funds, and then these pressures make it difficult to secure stable long-term financing and also coordinated actions across departments. And then the third one is hiring freezes also restricts the ability of city administrations to bring in technical, financial, and project management expertise. A lot of our cities have mentioned they have like rigid laws and regulations that actually impede their outsourcing and working with external expertise. And as a result, they have a huge capacity gaps and are further compounded by difficulties navigating legal and regulatory requirements, and this actually slows implementation. Next slide, please. Yes, while we've identified the barriers, it is also important to highlight the ways in which we are working with the cities to mitigate these barriers and securing alternative financial sources. First, we say cities can make better use of existing public funds by combining budgets across departments. This was very evident in one of the cities we worked in previously, where they had collaboration with the Department of Health to actually carry out MBS initiatives because we're able to, communicate the health benefits of having MBS in urban settings. And then also education, policing, and parks to finance MBS because MBS actually delivers cross-sectoral benefits. And these are the kind of things we work with the cities to do to communicate these benefits effectively so they could secure alternative financial sources. And then this approach actually helps to overcome the lack of dedicated MBS budgets and also unlocks new investment opportunities. Also, we've worked with cities to explore how they can combine small MBS scale projects into a single larger initiatives. And this allows municipalities to pool expertise around financing, capacity, and importantly, citizen involvement. And also, this approach actually helps to overcome skill-related challenges such as reduced costs and enables a more efficient use of resources across departments. Also, public funds can de-risk private investments. And what this means is when cities use public money to cover early stage costs, they make MBS projects more reliable and attract private investors. And this actually encourages them to contribute capital to scale and sustain the MBS. And also, once private investors can see that, okay, the initial cost has been covered, it actually increases investors to want to, get involved. And then also municipalities also mentioned they lack special expertise in different areas such as environmental monitoring or community engagement. And then raising awareness of these gaps is crucial because it opens doors for opportunities for job creation and then upskilling and redeployment of public sector jobs, redeployment in terms of transitioning workers from roles like regular grass maintenance to seed cultivation, and also to facilitate the upskilling of employees or employment for green jobs. And then importantly as well is public-private people partnerships. I know we've been used to public-private partnerships, but it's very important to add the people aspect as well, because what is coming out, especially around the maintenance, since there's no money for maintenance, but involving local communities, involving citizens, involving volunteering groups would help, reduce that maintenance cost because they can actually take on the role of maintaining these projects over time and also create a sense of ownership and co-creation process of these urban initiatives. Next slide, please. Yes, given we've talked about the barriers and the strategies we are working with the cities to mitigate this, it is important to also highlight the key messages and learnings from our cities. First one being financing for urban nature is actually needed across the entire life cycle of MBS, from planning, delivery to long-term stewardship. And then cities can expand their financing options by drawing on innovative approaches like we mentioned earlier. And then unlocking the full potential of urban nature actually requires strong systematic support. That is not just left for one department to do. It is very important to see how you can collaborate and work with other departments to see how you can actually achieve your goals. And then urban greening importantly also generates green jobs across planning, construction, maintenance, and environmental monitoring. And it is very important to communicate it. I know we are not leaving any sector behind. It's very important to see that you are working with all sectors of the economy to see how you can transition to nature positive. And then MBS also delivers clear economic benefits, including job creation, cost savings for government, household, and businesses. We can talk about this more during the discussion phase. And then lastly, nature-based enterprises are critical delivery partners as they bring specialized technical and ecological expertise needed to plan, implement, and maintain effective MBS. We know nature-based enterprises are quite a new area, but we've been trying to communicate to our cities to be able to work with them because they actually have the technical expertise required to, implement these activities. And then last slide, please. Yes, so how are we working with the cities to achieve this? We are using a three-step approach. The first is we use the business model canvas to identify and access alternative sources of financing. So a business model canvas is a tool which cities can easily use to communicate their goals and actually plan and how they can sustain the long life of the MBS initiative financially. And then secondly, we also help them to communicate who benefits from the proposed solutions, and then what value does it provide and how is it delivered. And then thirdly, we help to define the role of innovators in enabling these solutions as well. And then finally, we work with the cities in developing an action plan for long-term sustainable financing and how they can actually make a grounding case for financing in their urban nature plans. So this is basically an overview of the work we do with the UNP Plus cities. And please let me know if you have any questions in the chat. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much for our three presenters. And as usual, we put here like a summary of the four presentations, just to have a reminder of what is the challenges, what are the focus in this webinar, and some of the barriers and enablers that we ask our presenters that they had in their programs or projects. So I'm going to open the floor for discussion if you have any questions for our presenters. Linda, please.
Yes, thank you for all those very inspiring presentations. I have several questions. Actually, we'll try to focus maybe on one. To Hadiza, you just told, I really like also the steps and everything at this UNP Plus project. So I would be from the city of Munich, be interested, for example, if we would like to also to join or establish also your UNP Plus in our city. Because I read Cassia's actually some benefits, for example, like the interdepartmental consultation, so what everything could be done more stronger also within the city with the new UNP Plus. I like it very, very much. I was asking myself regarding the nature positive economy. So how, or do you need, or do you had in those 5 cities who are at the moment establishing UNP Plus, business experts? Do you need really people who are really, I mean, experts from the business case also? Because actually we have a lot of people from planning, landscape architects, and so on. So, you know, a little bit different. And I would really like to have also, because, yeah. So what is your experience with that? Or maybe with Barcelona? We are going to go to Barcelona actually next week. So we are very curious because they are going to show us the UNP Plus too. Do you know at the moment, so how is the co-creation here with different and multi-stakeholders in this case to bring everyone together? Because this is actually, I think, also a challenge, or?
Thank you very much for your question. Like you mentioned, it's a very big challenge because from experience and our discussions with the cities, most of them tend to work in silos and just work like in the department. So what we've been doing is talking to them to see how they can actually open their doors and actually work with businesses, particularly nature-based enterprises who have this technical expertise that they can bring in to deliver their initiatives. And also a lot of the cities want to have clear goals, and then in order for them to achieve those goals, they need to be able to open their doors, like I mentioned, to working with all the stakeholders that you mentioned. So this is what actually our workshops is going to be like. For example, I'll just give an example with the city of Burgas, where we have a workshop with them, and they told us what they wanted is they want to see examples of how they can actually bypass like the current state of no finance, no money, which is actually cutting across most cities across Europe. And what we are doing with them is showing them examples of other cities we've worked with. And now we are going to facilitate like a peer-to-peer exchange with other cities, for example, the city of Glasgow and other cities we've worked with in the past, to see how they can learn and how they can, replicate in their city as well. And like you mentioned again, it's very important to see how they can also work with nature-based enterprises and how they can facilitate entrepreneurship within the municipality. So yeah, this is basically the first step of our work, is creating an awareness on you can actually work with these people to bypass all this rigid process and barriers that are actually present. So yeah, but taking it one step at a time. Don't know if Cassia has anything to add.
Yeah, thank you. I wrote in the chat, and I'm looking in my other window to try and find the information, but I am pretty sure that specifically for Germany, there's funding available, not for the urban nature plans, but for the Anpassungsstrategien that have to be written. And I was actually talking to Alice about this, and I promised that I would send the information. So now I'm finally taking a look. But what I would suggest for your situation in particular is to see if there's already an Anpassungsstrategie process for Munich underway, and if there's a way to get involved and ask them to utilize the steps of the UNP process, because UNP Plus, the work is funded by the Commission, right? Some of the cities had already done the work. Some of them have strategies that already mostly meet the requirements, and they're just doing the work of bringing it up to snuff. But generally, you need somebody or a group of people who are going to lead the process. And either people have to agree to do it with the funding that they already have, or they need to find another form of funding. But I do think that it really helps that while it's not binding, the EU Biodiversity Strategy for 2030 does explicitly say that communities over 20,000 need to be taking steps to have these plans in place. But I'm going to find the Germany-specific information and make sure I get it to you and Alice.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Does anyone has another question? Alice, please.
Thanks a lot for all the presentations. And I think my question goes to Ljubljana, but also Cassia and Hadisa from the project point of view. Money rules the world, as we know, and it's very tight at the moment. So on the one hand, in at least the city of Munich, but it's for sure all other German municipalities at least, and I hope that maybe other cities do it differently, but each department has a budget, an annual budget, and essentially the budgeting is done just within the departments. And so nature is a cross-cutting topic. So I wonder whether you have good examples from Ljubljana or from the cities within your project that maybe managed to overcome these departmental budgeting issues. And the second thing is also that municipal budgets in Germany have just been cut left, right, and center by millions of euros. And there's sort of, you cannot make your budget bigger even with EU funding, because essentially blows up the municipal budget and goes beyond the threshold between essentially debt and additional income. So that, for example, in Munich is an issue that even though we would have European funding to maybe do a nature plan, we can't do it because we go beyond a certain amount of million euros and then go beyond sort of the legal threshold where the city can manage its own budget, and it would then we need to sort of transfer to the federal state of Bavaria. So I'm wondering, and I think there is no, at the moment at least, it doesn't look like there will be any solution to that within the next 4 to 5 years, where essentially all these, from the nature restoration law, but also these other sort of nature-related policies, actual implementation should happen. So it's like a chessmate kind of situation where on the one hand, you can't be creative in terms of working across departmental budgets, and you can't really get additional funding or be creative about that because you can't go beyond these budgetary thresholds. So I'm wondering, within the case of Ljubljana, but maybe also the cities that are part of the UNP Plus project, how you do it or did it?
Obviously, these budget problems are all the way quite much the same. So also in Ljubljana, I always said that mayor has been a magician with money because he was previously working in industry. He was not politician at all, and I think we owe much to him about how he deals with the money. But of course, there are always limited budgets, and there is environmental department in charge for this. But they always, with the help of mayor, made some kind of partnerships with private investors, with private money, because it would not be possible without this. And I really don't know how these arrangements goes, but they are quite successful. And honestly, one of the main ideas why to enter the Mission 100 initiative was also financing, because it costs a lot and we do have limited financing all the time, so it is an issue. But with including also citizens, with small budgets, arrangements, they were quite successful. Small money given to the neighborhood and quite big things can come out, because it involves people and children as well, schools and so on. So many such solutions were already taken in Ljubljana, and now the money maybe is really the biggest issue for the city. As I said, it all starts with planning. When it was planned for Ljubljana to upgrade its green character, then money came, then investors came, not only public ones, also private. For instance, it is ongoing, successful partnership with the BTC city. So it is a big commercial zone northeast of the city, and it's big as the city center itself. And it was like 20 years ago, then city wisely come to them with this partnership, and they, as I think Jan said, or maybe Paul said, they also want to be, green investors. They also want to be known as that. And now they really they have a big PR of how green they are, but we don't care, because what they do, it's important. And they do a lot of greenery, and they did a private park that is open to the public in a big commercial zone. I mean, it was planned. It was planned 20 years ago, and it was compulsory for them to build it, but they finally did it. So a lot of cooperation with investor where money is, when money lies. And that's why we had problem on our space project site, on our pilot site, that for now we couldn't get on board private investors, pharmaceutical ones with big money. But obviously for now, no intention to, to be more green, to give something back to the city. And I think we will, but didn't success till now. So a lot of negotiation and participation, but the city is quite successful with that. And all the way, talking to the citizens through journal, through PR, through engaging it on a project. So engagement all the time, cooperation. It's the key, I suppose.
Thank you. Thank you, Liliana. Adisa?
Yes, I just wanted to give an example of one of the cities we are working with, and what we are working with them to achieve is they're also experiencing a lot of budget cuts as well. And what we're working with them to do is have like a catalog of projects that they would like to finance, but there's no money for, and then linking it with private investors or companies that want to do CSR. or maybe offset carbon, and then they would actually fund that project. Could be small projects, but once you put a lot of these small projects together, actually become something really big. So this is one of the on-ground example I know of what I know of that we're working with the cities to do.
Maybe I can add that with Mission 100 project, it became so very obvious that the city has to involve all the stakeholders, not just city projects, not just public companies projects, but to be a whole family of citizens, of everyone in a city, and together we can achieve this, because there are many carbon-led problems with of course within residents, within houses, how they are heated and so on. So this is still a challenge for the city, how to include really the most wide possible, range of stakeholders. It's a big issue still.
Thank you very much. But I think it's also interesting, what I sort of heard out of that is sort of, you have this narrative, you have like a branding around it. And I think the European Green Capital really helped you establish that as well now. I also sort of, years ago, I was in Ljubljana, and clearly I need to go again based on what you showed us today, that just a lot has happened. And I think sort of that also, if you have this narrative, this branding, that you can activate different people, but you can also really attract sort of private investment. Although I think there, I'm still not quite sure. It's sort of, you could arrange a puzzle of different funding streams. But in Munich, I think there's hesitation in terms of being too dependent on private money. So essentially there's like, of course, if you do an investor, you have an investor and they want to develop a certain area to build mostly housing, then for a certain percentage, they need to build social housing. They need to have sort of parts of their gains, the wins they make, they have to sort of, they help sort of establish the public spaces, the school, social infrastructure, and so on and so forth. But if you look sort of at bigger green spaces, there's no real solution to that yet. It really relies essentially fully on public funding, mostly municipal, but to a certain extent also federal, state, not so much national, I think. But it's really sort of, you need to be creative, you need to have be patient, really be good at sort of bringing that together in the realm of your department's responsibility.
Yes. And regarding what you said about Ljubljana, green capital and so on, it's a stick with two ends, because some also say, oh, we already have been green capital, we are already the best, and we gain all these awards, so what much to do? We already, awarded from time to time, and obviously we are so good. So when Ljubljana was like 8, the best cycling city in the world, our vice mayor, Kožil, he is urban planner, he is professor and so on. He said, no, I don't want us to be anymore on this list, because when we are the best, everything is already done. So what to do anymore, People can be content quite quickly. So yes, but we have to maintain this green character, and we have to go on because new challenges arise all the time. And we also have heat islands and everything, and we have flood problems and overheating in the city. And of course, the city center itself, because it was built, 2,000 years ago, and it is from Roman origin, and then later in the Middle Ages, it does not have enough greenery. It's also heated island, the core itself. So many problems, new ones. We have to, upgrade all these solutions. But I know how our people are. Oh, we are the best already. So maybe this is different from your culture, but it is how it is with us.
Cassia?
Yeah, so I don't have a broad answer or solution, but Alice, listening to you talk, I thought of two examples of public-private partnerships, one that worked and one that didn't. So I think to look at what isn't working, depending on your perspective, Detroit in Michigan is a really good example because there was a lot of flight from the city. It's been a shrinking city. And to try and reverse that, the city worked with a lot of private developers to redo the downtown. And I think that these business development districts, as they called, are very controversial and are not equitably distributing the benefits of that development. And then you might have actually been there because at the Network Nature annual event a few years ago, we went to a park near sort of a food court mall area. And that is a public-private partnership where the city sold the brownfield to the developer with a lot of stipulations in the contract that they then had to develop and maintain the surrounding park area. And that, I think, has been really successful.
Thank you, Cassia. Is there any other question? I have actually one question for Liliana. So you showed us a pathway ever since 2016 that kind of put you in the map, as you said, but obviously it was not that year. It was work from before that was awarded in 2016, and then you did this book, and then on 2024 you had another award. So that shows a very nice journey. I wonder, in the political matters, how did it happen? Because I often see cities, when one mayor is having this idea of being greener, be sustainable, but then if another party totally on the opposite side wins the municipality, totally trash whatever the other one was and goes on the other way. So how this happen? Is this the same major, or is how this synchrony happening all these years?
It is very unique situation in Ljubljana because really it has been the main mayor from I think 2006 till now. So, and he was accompanied by, I mentioned Professor Kogel. He was so, passionate about turning Ljubljana for bicycling, for pedestrians, and they get along really well. Well, he now retired, the professor, but the mayor still is ongoing. I think that this also has positive and negative maybe things, but to be in one direction and to really go to the vision so many years, almost 20 years now, lead to some big successes, because if there's vision would be interrupted by another mayor who would want something completely different, it would just be cut, and it wasn't. It is ongoing process still.
I think it's very unique, I suppose.
Yes, it is. It's very unique. I don't know how it happened, but the mayor was obviously so successful. Every mandate that he had, opportunities again and again and again to be elected. It's really very unique. He has become quite old by now. He started in his 50s. Now he's in the beginning of his 70s. So it is really unique.
Thank you, Liliana.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any other question or comment? I also have a question for Cassia. So this urban nature plans, you said that it's a mandate from the commission that all the cities above 20,000 they must have these plans, or is it voluntary? How does it work?
It's voluntary. It's not a
Okay.
mandate,
Okay.
but it is a call. They
Right.
are heavily, greatly encouraged. And with the nature restoration regulation, which does have mandates for cities, I think that's a really good connection for UNPs being able to help the cities then fulfill their obligations. And I did put in the chat a link to our policy brief on on the nature restoration regulation on Article 8, which specifically refers to the targets for cities, and also the role of finance perhaps in accomplishing that. But I think the nature restoration regulation is the legislation most relevant, whereas the biodiversity strategy is non-mandatory encouragement.
So, for example, for our cities, I can imagine, can we, like our cycles, can we justify based on the body of knowledge that we have built in JUSTNature project, we can justify and apply for these urban nature plans because they have to comply with the urban restoration law. Is that how it works or not?
No.
Could work.
So I would say the urban nature plans are a tool. And unfortunately, the onus is on the city to figure out how to use it and how to make it relevant and how to find things that they already have to do that they can then use to strategically integrate the urban nature plan process. So in Europe, the nature restoration regulation and the national restoration plans that the countries have to make, that is one way to argue to decision makers that the urban nature plan is a tool to do this, and the support comes from the biodiversity strategy. Then you have your different national contexts. So I live in Germany. I know a little bit about the German national context. That's why I was able to say that I know that there's funding and a connection when it comes to the adaptation strategy. Unfortunately, I don't necessarily know that for other countries, but that's a place where I think the different experts in the European project sphere at least can try and help you. And then when the cities are no longer in the project, then it becomes a lot more reliant on local stakeholders who might have that information and be able to help you position the UNP framework within the local context.
But then I see here a barrier because you said like it's on the national level and we are working on the local level. So that this connection, how can we make this connection?
Yeah, I mean, that's where I could say that's what ICLEI does, that we help
Oh,
cities communicate with
okay.
the national and then the European level. At least that's what we aim to do. But you're right. And that's one of the things that we tried to address in the policy brief. So the policy brief isn't just what should cities do, but it's also what do cities want from the national level? What are they hoping that the national level takes into consideration when they take these national restoration plans? Because while the plans themselves are written at the national level, there are obligations for cities that the cities are then on the hook to fulfill.
All right. Very interesting. Any other comments or final remarks? No? Maybe then we can close. Magdalena, what do you think? Yeah.
Seems so. Thank you everyone very much for joining. Thank you for very interesting presentations and insights. I hope it was interesting for you as well. We will follow up with a little, we will follow up with a report of this multilateral meeting that you will also find on our website. Not immediately, but we will let you know. And Tanya, do you have something to add?
Before you just remind me, we need to take a picture, please. So I will ask you to, I almost forgot. Please, can I ask you to turn on the cameras so we can take a picture? Thank you so much. Okay, so are we ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you so much. Okay, great.
Perfect. So you will find the report with the picture on our website a bit later. And thank you for sharing your contact. Lilian also shared the contact in the chat, so please do copy it if you're interested. And yes, with this, I would like to wish you a very good day. And thank you again for participating.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks very
Bye.
much. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Can you stop the recording, please?
Yes, yes. Okay.
Ah.
We escorted the guest.
Yeah. You still recording?